Hello everyone, my name is Trevor, I go by TheMrTrails, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we will be going over the top 12 Dauntless Players of 2021. How does one define such a thing? Well, I'm glad you asked. See, throughout the entire year, I kept track of the Dauntless Trials speedrun leaderboards. 52 weeks of pummeling things with strikers, poking things with war pikes, and shooting behemoths in the face with their repeaters. Thousands of players made the top 100 at some point this year, and probably hundreds of thousands of behemoths were slain. If you spent many hours and many failed runs and extreme amounts of patience, you could end up on the top of this leaderboard. And I tallied up the best of the best and gave each player points based on the number of top 3 solo performances, top 10 solo performances, and top 3 squad performances. More of an emphasis was placed on solo play because while repeatedly showing up in the top 3 of squads is very impressive, it does require teammates that also know what they are doing. But squad play did indeed matter in the rankings, and there are about 7 players on here who did get really boosted by their squad influence. But hey, this video literally took an entire year of dedication to recording who was on the trial leaderboard, and then doing the data entry, and then doing the data analysis, which my dad actually helped me out with quite a bit. So just consider taking a moment of your time to like the video. Let's try to get at least 500. I believe in you guys. But with the explanation of the rankings out of the way, let's get started. Number 12. So you may have wondered why a top 12, and the reason for that is basically the first 5 or so players on our list are essentially tied with one another, so don't read too much into their exact placements. But our first spot on the list is going to be the Veslovani. I'm actually kind of surprised that the Veslovani is not somewhere higher on the list, as I distinctly remember making note of their performances even very early in the year, achieving 2 top 10 solo performances in January. However, the Veslovani did maintain a fair bit of squad focus throughout the year, but for one reason or another he had several solid performances that ended up not showing in the data. However, they did more consistently start showing up in the data starting in June, and have even been featured in the number 1 spot of the leaderboard in squads 3 times, once in June, once in July, and once in December. Overall, the Veslovani achieved 2 top 3 solo performances, 9 top 10 solo performances, and 16 top 3 squad performances. A rather solid player to start off our list. Number 11. Number 11 is 11. But why 11, you may ask? Well, that's his name. So this was unintentional at first, and 11 did show up in the data around this point, but once it actually happened and he was ranked 11th in one of the renditions of the data I did, I wanted to keep it that way. Again, the first 4 or 5 players on the list are essentially tied. You can rank him pretty much anywhere with these other guys, but putting him at 11th is obviously the funniest, let's be honest. Anyway, 11 is mainly notable for a couple of things, one of those being that he is a devoted hammer main, and partially because of this devotion, he actually did not ever show up in the top 3 overall of the solo leaderboard. He did show up in the top 10 of the leaderboard 8 times, and once weapon-specific boards came out, you'd see him at number 1 on hammer a few times. But as far as his solo play is concerned, he never really cared about the leaderboards, and mainly played just to have a satisfying run. The other thing that makes 11 very notable is his squad performances with some of the other names that will be featured on this list. Starting in April, 11 and his squad started racking up top 3 placements, such that by the end of the year, 11 tallied up 30 top 3 squad performances, 14 of those being number 1. And that is super impressive, and perhaps he should be ranked higher on the list, but again, solo play did take heavier weight on the list, and it was much harder to rank the bottom of this list than the top of the list. So he will take the 11th spot, if not only for the sake of a pun. Number 10. The number 10 spot is going to go to Blitz. Blitz has also been known as Toes, as well as Hayashida, a Japanese name. I did try my best to keep track of name changes, but obviously I don't know everyone, and Blitz was a late addition to the list because he had multiple names in my data. Blitz has been a consistent presence throughout the year, first showing up in the top 10 of squads in February and the top 10 solo board in April. He made his first top 3 solo appearance of the year under the very cultured name of Toes in May. And Blitz even had 3 number 1 squad trials finishes, 1 in April, 1 in October, and 1 in December. Overall, Blitz had 3 top 3 solo performances, 9 top 10 solo performances, and 10 top 3 squad performances, which was definitely good enough to include him on this list. Number 9. Number 9 on the list is going to be Luffy. Luffy is actually quite a surprise to be on the list, as he didn't make any appearance in the data until July. And maybe he has a different name that I'm not aware of, but stacking this resume up in half a year's time is rather impressive. His first performance that even registers in the data is a number 1 squad trial in July. It wouldn't have been a complete shock for that week to be their only week in the data, as helping people get top 5 is a thing that some squads do. But Luffy did continue to do trials. Luffy would not only achieve 3 additional number 1 squad times, but also a number 1 solo performance in October. Overall, Luffy had 2 top 3 solo performances, 8 top 10 solo performances, and an amazing 20 top 3 squad performances. Again, all of this only coming in the second half of the year. A crazy impressive resume. Hopefully he keeps it up in 2022. Number 8. Number 8 on this list is going to be GF Joe 13. Joe has had quite a bit of fun with name changes, all being some addition of his original name. We've had Goldfish Joe, Girlfriend Joe, Giga Forehead Joe, Gluten-Free Joe, Gary Feeder Joe, Guilty Forever Joe, G Fuel Joe, G Force Joe, and an inappropriate Joe that got him a temporary ban. But we could actually even make a top 10 GF Joe username list. I did have a feeling that Joe would be on here, so I kept track of a few of the non-essential runs, and the first trial of the year I found was in January, cracking the top 100. His first top performance would be a top 10 solo finish in March, and he would follow it up with another top 10 the next week. But then Joe would start playing squad trials with someone we've already mentioned, But Y11, and someone that we will mention soon. On April 8th, they would achieve 2nd place in squad trials together, and their first number 1 finish of the year in May. But Joe would play a bit of solos now and then as well, even grabbing a 2nd place finish in June. And Joe did make the 2nd most top 3 performances of his regular crew, accumulating 36 top 3 finishes and 17 number 1 squad finishes. Again, you could probably rank him higher with that amount of number 1 squad finishes, but he does indeed make the list very comfortably. Number 7. Taking the number 7 spot is Danseop, aka Wolver. Danseop has been around for a long time. He was the number 1 finisher on the trial that I got my first top 5 on. But Danseop did not actually play a ton this year, quitting the game for quite some time during it, and the fact he's this high on the list, given that statement, is pretty incredible. The reason he's up here is one part his squad, and the other part just how top-heavy his solo performances are. With 15 top 10 solo finishes, 5 of those were in the top 3, including the very first week of this year. At the start of the year, he and his crew also dominated the top of the squad leaderboard, with 4 number 1 placements in a row, and with another number 1 placement later in the year. Overall, Danseop had 5 top 3 solo performances, 15 top 10s, and 13 top 3 squad performances, a rather admirable effort given he didn't attempt trials for more than half of the year. Number 6. Coming in at number 6 is Cosmos. Cosmos is yet another member of the Deadly Squad with GF Joe and But Y11. However, Cosmos has a bit more top solo performances under his belt than the other two. Cosmos has a similar timeline as his buddy Joe. His first trials performance I found was a top 100 in February, and then on April 8th, not only grabbed 2nd place in squads, but also a top 10 in solos that week. And running more with 11 and Joe throughout the year would bring him a similar 30 top 3 squad performances as his pals, with again 14 of those being number 1 finishes. But Cosmos would experience more solo success, including 2 2nd place finishes as well as a number 1 finish in September. Overall, he had 4 top 3 solos, 11 top 10 solos, and 30 top 3 squads. Cosmos, Joe, and 11 made considerable note about how they enjoyed their time playing together throughout this year, and their friendship being part of what kept them motivated in trials, even while dealing with probably 500 hours of loading screens in the process. Number 5. This is where things start getting wild, and what's very wild is that the number 5 spot actually had 0 top 3 squad performances this year, meaning that they made their placement on this list exclusively from their solo play. And this individual is Turquoise Bulbul, and he was one of the solo titans of this year. How does 27 top 10 solos sound? Over half of the weeks in the year, this man was in the top 10 of the solo leaderboard, 7 of those performances being in the top 3, and 3 of these were number 1 solo finishes, being in May, June, and August. Turquoise has quit the game in the past couple of months though, and his main comment on his trials experience was, "Don't waste your time playing this game." I would say that he did not waste his time though, as he will be remembered via some random dude on the internet's YouTube video. Number 4. At number 4 on the list, we have the man himself, Heltrix. Heltrix was also almost exclusively a solo performer, and if there were to be a video about 2020 Trials players, he would likely be number 1, edging over Derperific. In 2020, he had numerous number 1 performances, mainly in the second half of the year, absolutely dominating the solo behemoths. In 2021, Heltrix didn't do nearly as much to try to secure top placements as the previous year though. Heltrix had 2 number 1 solo performances in January and really only intermittently went for top times after that. But for intermittently competing and being able to tally up 10 top 3 solo performances on the year is still incredible. He also had 23 top 10 performances, as well as 5 top 3 squad performances. However, saying these were squad performances is somewhat misleading, as 3 of those 5 squad performances are actually just duo performances. And I believe he and his duo actually hold the only 2 number 1 duo performances that were not done in the Mount Cheese Trials. Both of these number 1 squad performances taking place in May of this year. Heltrix was kind of surprised, as a few of these performances were just him going for a sub 5 run, but that doesn't take away from a great resume of achievement in 2021. Number 3. The third best Dauntless player of 2021 is Betta Vashinsky. Betta, alongside his squad of Danseop, Peepo Devi, and an egg, 3957, aka Owen, was the top dominant squad to start off the year, again claiming 4 consecutive top 1 performances, with Betta claiming 11 more number 1 squad performances with other teammates, including Sparapatate, Cocky Panther, and Phoenix Bug Labs. He had the third most top 3 squad performances on the list, being 34 of them. However, Betta was also a bit of a monster in solos as well, claiming 11 top 3 solo finishes, 5 of these being number 1 solo placements. And considering this was in only 17 top 10 solo placements, his top 3 finishing rate in weeks he was top 10 is second best. Betta told me his favorite performance of the year was his Karabakh squad trial in February, getting a 7-second number 1 time. And his other main statement is, while he does enjoy his time playing solo trials, his real secret to success is building and maintaining friendships with other players. His various friendships with other teammates bring out the best in him, and they keep him motivated to come back time and time again, even after his previous teammates move on from the game. Number 2. The second best Dauntless player of 2021 should be no surprise, being Texas Ranger. Between solo and squad play, Texas pulled in the most top 3 performances of 2021, achieving 17 top 3 finishes in solos and 37 top 3 finishes in squads, 52 top 3s overall. And Texas spent over 60% of this year in the top 10, being on the board in 32 weeks. And he is no stranger to being number 1 on the leaderboard, holding the number 1 solo spot 6 times last year and 20 number 1 squad performances, the most by any player in the year. Texas had a few top squad finishes earlier in the year, before joining up with the crew of GF Joe, Buttwy11, and Cosmos in July. And this crew would continue to dominate the squad leaderboards, but even as some of the players may have been subbed out, Texas would still consistently be with the number 1 crew. Add his tremendous solo play and his tremendous squad play together, and you've got one of the top 2 players of the year. Before we hit our number 1 spot, let's go with a couple honorable mentions. Peepo Devi and an egg 3957 are the other pieces to Betta and Danseop's top squad, but either they didn't do a ton of solos, or what solos were played were done exclusively with a warpike, meaning that the top placements weren't always a sure thing in solos. And if we were to be awarding people who only used specific weapons, then Solar Burst would have to be mentioned, a sword main who was able to drop 3 top 3 performances, including a number 1 overall. And then there's BLS, Cocky Panther, and Phoenix Bug Labs, who all had very, very good squad resumes, but didn't really care too much for solo play. Number 1. Coming in at the number 1 spot should also not be much of a surprise to anyone, and it's Dat Cosplay Grill. Now, I did expect cosplay to be number 1 on the year, but I did not expect the race between him and Texas to be as one-sided as it was. Cosplay had more number 1 solo finishes than Texas had solo top 3 finishes. I thought it was way closer than that. And you could view it as being a bit closer, as Texas did actually have the most number 1 placements, with the 20 in squad and 6 in solos. But with 20 number 1 solo performances, 34 top 3 solo performances, and 48 top 10 solo performances on the year, you kind of have to give the crown to Cosplay. Even if I didn't tack on his squad performances, getting 12 top 3 squads and 2 number 1 squad performances in duos with Heltrix, he would still be number 1 by a pretty hefty margin in any solo focused system I could have implemented. And when I asked him if he had any comments about his performances, he said he wished he could have played more trials past the halfway point in this year. Like, what? How could you even begin to want more than what you have accomplished, my man? It is unreal. That is a crazy mentality that he has going on, and he is more than deserving of the number 1 spot on this list. What you don't see in a video like this is all of the underdog stories on the year, all of the people who tried their best and succeeded, or tried their best and failed. You don't see the plague of trials cheaters that were influencing the final placements on the board at the beginning of the year, because I took them off. But what you do see is a year of commitment to trying to be the best speedrunners, trying to be the best teammates, and trying to be the best friends that you can be. This game builds friendships and competitive spirits, and it'll be interesting to see who is going to be topping this list in 2022. Thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, smash that like button for me. It was rather challenging to maintain focus on gathering all of the info in this video throughout the entire year. Special thanks for this video go to my dad for helping with the data analysis, Espresso and GF Joe, who recorded a few weeks of data that I either missed or deleted from my database, and to all of the Trials players out there for their participation throughout the last year. And special thank yous to my channel members who are helping to keep my YouTube paycheck a bit more consistent. You can join for 99 cents and gain access to a few cool perks, such as an ad-free viewing experience on this video. But I have been Trevor, I go by the Mr. Trails, and I will catch you guys next time.